Hello, see you again with Brain Factor channel. This time we will discuss about Eve's grave in Jeddah. Watch the video carefully and don't skip this video. And please help subscribe and like our channel. Thank you. This is Eve's grave in Jeddah. Did you know that Eve, the biblical Eve who is said to have been created by God from one of Adam's ribs, is still believed to be buried in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia? Some Muslims believe so. They say that the name of the city derives from the Arabic term Jeddah, which can be translated as grandma. This is a reference to Eve, who is known as the grandmother of everyone. The tale of Adam and Eve's expulsion from paradise because of their disobedience to God by eating the forbidden fruit is recounted in the Quran, just as it is in the Bible and the Torah. In this version of the story, Adam and Eve are punished for eating the fruit. It is held in Arab tradition that Adam and Eve led distinct lives on earth, despite the fact that the Bible makes no reference of where they ended up or what they did on earth. Adam was sent to Mecca, and once there, God gave him the task of constructing the Kaaba, the holy black rock that Muslims turn toward during the 5 daily prayers that they are required to say. Eve was exiled to the city of Jeddah, where she spent the remainder of her life and was eventually laid to rest. According to Fraukherd Bey, a German-British historian, there is no definitive means of knowing exactly where the tomb is. Some claim it is someplace in Palestine, while others believe it is in Saudi Arabia. Who knows? This statement was made by Fraukherd Bey. The Arab historian and cartographer Muhammad al-Idrisi, who lived around the middle of the 12th century, is credited with making the first recorded mention to Eve's tomb, also known as the Tomb of Hawa. Later on, in the late 12th century, Ibn Jubair wrote that there is a site in Jeddah with an ancient and towering dome, which is claimed to have been the lodging place of Eve. Ibn Jubair's statement was made in reference to Jeddah. Ibn al-Mujawwir and Ibn Khaldun, both of whom lived in the 13th century, make specific references to the tomb of Eve in Jeddah. However, the well-known traveler Ibn Battuta, who lived in the 14th century, never mentioned it while he was in Mecca. Many historians, including Tabari and Masudi, as well as others, assert that, according to legend, Eve is buried in Jeddah. Nevertheless, they do not provide any specific information regarding her tomb. Sir Richard Francis Burton, a famous British explorer, geographer, and ethnologist, traveled to the location of what is believed to be Eve's tomb in 1853 while posing as a Muslim pilgrim. According to Sir Burton, the tomb was arranged in the shape of a large reclining figure. He used his footsteps to determine the size of both the length and width of the structure, and he noted to his guide that if our first parent measured 120 paces from head to waist, and 80 from waist to heel, she must have presented much the appearance of a duck. In an article he penned in the early part of 1926, British acting consul S.R. Jordan described the tomb as being approximately 4 yards wide and 200 yards in length. There was a small mosque in the middle of the structure, and in exchange for a few bakshish, the keeper of the edifice would lift a flagstone from the center of the floor to provide visitors with a view of the lady's navel. Iqbal Ali Shah, an Indian-Afghan author and publicist who lived from 1894 until 1969, made the following statement concerning the contested proportions of the tomb. According to what I was told, Eve must have been a woman of tremendous proportions because the original grave was almost 8 feet long. It was probably for the best that she had not survived to welcome us in the flesh, for even though it is said that Muslims have a thing for ladies of heroic proportion, we put a stop to the Titanic when it comes to romantic interests. On the other hand, I was informed that the grave had, for some unexplained reason, suddenly grown to its present enormous proportions by the time I arrived. It is said that Ar Rafiq, who served as Emir and Sharif of Mecca from 1882 until 1905, attempted to demolish the mausoleum. However, this resulted in an outcry from the general people. After that, he continued by saying, "But do you think that our mother was so tall? If the foolishness is taking place on a global scale, the tomb may remain." The tomb was eventually demolished in 1928 by Emir Faisal, who was the viceroy of the Hijaz at the time and was just 19 years old. Emir Faisal was the son of Ibn Saud, who was the Sultan of Najd and king of the Hijaz. into disrepair, and now the only thing that remains is the mythology, which will continue to exist and be passed down to subsequent generations. Well, that's all for this video about Eve's grave in Jeddah. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to help subscribe, like and comment, so that we are even more excited to make other interesting videos. Bye.